Hey everyone, it's Carl again with another tutorial video. This time we're doing the ultimate Dryland template. Super exciting, right? I know that Dryland can be really kind of intimidating, especially for new swimmers, and a lot of times we hand it off to an expert in the Dryland world. Hopefully after today, we won't have to do that quite as much, or at least when you hand it off to an expert, you know what they're talking about and what they're thinking about, and see if it matches up with what you want. Okay, that's really important. A couple things before we dive into the explanation here. This is for older swimmers, so like 13, 14 and above. Younger swimmers really don't need this complicated of an event. This is kind of going through more of like a weightlifting program or something similar along those lines. And we're going to go through how we schedule it to fit in with the rest of the season and how the different exercises work together to change the biology. We're not going to go into all those details, but the details are actually in here. So if you read through some of these explanations, it will give you more of those details. So this is the actual like repeating template here. But before we jump into that, let's go down and talk about like what dryland is actually for and how we're going to kind of narrow the focus to be good for swimmers. So dryland to me, you want to take the swimming motions out of the water onto the land and you want to practice them and make them more efficient and more powerful. And that's really the goal, right? The goal is not to get big and bulky. The goal is not to get sore. The goal is not to get injured. The last thing you want to do is get injured because that will ruin your swimming. You don't want dryland to be a priority above what you're training in the water, right? So your swimming training should be priority number one. Dryland is a supplementation to that. It is not a replacement, and you don't want it to affect the former, okay? So let's start with taking the swimming motions from the water to the land. So we kind of divided up into four different things to help us keep the categories straight. So jumping exercises are one. So um, everyone needs to be able to jump off the blocks and jump off the wall really well. Pulling exercises, probably these two are the most important. So all the swimming motions have some sort of pull to them. Pushing, maybe not quite as important, but this is more for balance around the muscle, around the joint, and to keep you from getting injured or overuse injuries, that type of thing. And then abs, of course, abs hold everything together when you're swimming. So we have that as a category as well. So we have four swimming motions. So keep that in mind. The other, and then there's different levels of training, right? So you can do a maximum lift, you can do sets of 10, sets of 20. So we divided our dryland into four different kind of training zones, okay? So the first one is circuit training, which is kind of like you make stations and you go from one station to another and you're revolving around doing like the whole body workout. And this is really good early in the season to help with your heart and your cardiovascular system. This is the only type of dryland that actually improves your VO2. So when kids come off from their off season, they're a little out of shape and we don't want to throw them into like heavy lifting. So we want to get them warmed up to the exercises. So circuit training is where that fits in. And then we have strength, power, and speed. These kind of feed into one another. So, the explanations are there, but to go over them quickly, strength is like maxing out. And when we say maxing out, it's really in quotes. Like you don't actually have to go to like a failure level. You just have to put on something that's somewhat heavy and do only 1 to 2 reps. And this helps this helps muscle fiber recruitment. So your muscles are not recruiting all of the fibers all of the time, but we want to train them to recruit as many as possible. That's what strength does. Power helps recruit the muscle fibers as early as possible. So it may take a few seconds to recruit all the muscle fibers available, but we don't. That's too long, right? The swimming motion is fast, so we need the muscles to recruit as early as possible. And then speed is like doing it almost with no weight or just body weight, and we're practicing at maximum speed to improve nerve coordination and a little bit better recruitment of the muscle fibers as well. So it can get really complicated. It can get really messy on what these all mean. That's why we gave in this chart up here, these are all your exercise examples or choices and where they fit. So jumping and strength, pulling and power, pushing and speed, all of these are here. And actually, I'll take a quick minute and show you on the website. We actually created a whole library for these. If you go to the courses, Dryland exercise video library, so you can actually see examples of a lot of these different exercises in real time with their own individual explanations of how you're supposed to think about doing these exercises and how they how to do them right and not how to do them wrong. So let's go back to our, nope, not that one, this one. So we'll go back to our template here, and if you scroll up, this is our kind of big repeating cycle, okay? And I know it's a little complicated and maybe I need to rework it and fix it up, but the way this works is These are your day by day, so day 1, 2, 3, 4. So throughout the week, let's say it's like a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday type thing, but it doesn't have to be those. And then each day has, a couple of these swimming motions that we're going to work on. So jumping and pulling on day 1, pushing and abs on day 2, jumping, pulling day 3, so on and so forth, right? And then some sort of stretching. I think if you schedule stretching, the kids will do it. If you just tell them to go home and do it, they're not going to follow through. And there's explanations on. Whoops, sorry for all the scrolling. There's an explanation on stretching and the different types and how they work. So that's down there as well. And then the columns are your different weeks. So week 1, or like weeks 2 through 4, you're going to focus on these circuit exercises. Week 5 is going to be strength exercises. Week 6 is going to be power exercises, okay? And so on and so forth down the line. And I put in examples for what each of these should look like, including the sets and the reps. So let's zoom in here real quick and take a look at a couple of these. So week 2 through 4. So week 1 and 2, the kids are just getting in the water. You don't want to overload their bodies and add on Dryland on top of that. So maybe you put Dryland off until you're a couple weeks into the season, and then you start implementing it. So the first thing we do is circuit exercises. So you set up a bunch of stations like squats, Russian twists, rows, sit-ups, med balls. And what you're going to notice is that each exercise goes through a different body part. Squats is legs, Russian twists is abs, rows is arms, sit-ups is abs, med ball throws is arms, hanging leg raises abs. So, and you don't go for sets or for reps. You go for time and a little bit of rest in between to get things transferred over. So you do a few weeks of that. The kids are getting used to the exercises, and then you go into kind of the more main event meat of the Dryland. Whoops, let me go right there. Nope, it doesn't want to do that. So I'm going to make myself smaller and get out of the way a little bit. Okay. So week 5 is strength. So jumping strength, we're going to do just, let's say you do regular squats, 5 to 8 sets, 1 to 2 reps. So very little reps, right? I think that's so important for Dryland, for swimmers. You want to minimize actually the number of reps that you do, because that's going to minimize how sore you get and maximize safety, right? Kids are unsafe when they're tired. And if you make them do like 10, 20 reps, it's gonna make them unsafe. People a lot of times think that you can do endurance stuff on Dryland. I really don't think that's possible. Even 20, 30 reps is nothing compared to the thousands that you do in the water. Even during a race, I mean, you can get up to hundreds of strokes. Every stroke is a rep. So we really don't want to do that. We want to do that in the water. Dryland is to train efficiency, power, strength, those things. Okay, pull-ups, 5 to 8 sets, 3 to 4 reps. You're kind of getting the feel of like really, really trying real hard. We don't want to fail. Okay, so then power, again, lots of sets, but very few reps. And you decrease the weight a lot, and you focus on speed, and you're moving the weight fast. And again, go back to the video library. You'll kind of get a feel for what these exercises are supposed to look like. Week 7, more box jumps. So we're almost just no weight. It's body exercises. Lots of sets, very few reps, and a good amount of rest. And so these are all the examples for each of jumping is, your top one. Pulling is your next one. And then for each day, day by day, it gives you kind of examples on what to do. And then at the very end here is the taper. So you're going to be doing, basically it's speed work. So it's just like what you were doing in week 7 and so on, but it's going to be a lot fewer sets, a lot fewer reps, and a lot more rest. Okay, so we're basically just kind of adjusting those factors there. And it goes through the whole, and that kind of goes through your whole season. Now, let's say that's super confusing and you're still like, Carl, what are you talking about? You could not have made this any more worse off. So I made actually an entire season for you laid out as in that template format. So week 1, day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. Week 2, day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. Okay. And then as you can see here, 3, 4, 5, strength, power, speed, those kind of cycle until you get to taper, which is where you just do a little bit of speed stuff just to kind of stay kind of bouncy and fast. So hopefully that helps organize things, especially after you read it. So let me show you where to find these. So if you go back to our website, swimsmarttoday.com, if you go to bookstore, free downloadables, you'll find this Excel sheet there in the Dryland template. So you just add it to cart, check out, you get the Excel file. If you want to deep dive into the thought process behind a lot of this, we have a couple more resources. So the biology of swimming goes through the nervous system and how it works and how it's trained and how it adapts to different types of training. The coach's guide does the same thing and goes through kind of that template, but even in more and more detail. And then we have these different courses where you can, if you don't want to read, you can watch the videos instead of and get an explanation like that. So hopefully that helps. Hopefully you enjoy it and it works for you. And we look forward to have you join us on the next one. Thanks.